Filipino migrant workers are ready to help rebuild the New Zealand economy amidst the pandemic. Here's Greg Bessa for the details.
It may be remembered that thousands of Filipino workers work in Christchurch when the city started its reconstruction efforts after it was struck by a devastating earthquake in February 2011. Now, as the government is implementing multi-million-dollar initiatives, including small and big infrastructure projects aimed at rebuilding the New Zealand economy as it continues to suffer from severe disruptions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Filipino migrant workers, some of whom were employed during the Christchurch reconstruction, are ready and willing to work side by side with their Kiwi counterparts for the country's economic recovery. The Philippine Embassy and the Philippine Overseas Labor Office have been reaching out to Filipino migrant workers across New Zealand to know firsthand the working conditions and mental well-being as the COVID-19 crisis in the country adversely affects thousands of business establishments, resulting to a significant number of job losses. In a meeting held at the Polo office in Wellington City, Philippine Ambassador to New Zealand, His Excellency Jesus Domingo, and Labor Attaché Angel Burha Jr. met a group of Filipino migrant workers who are employed at the construction industry. Other than providing information and advice on programs and services the embassy and Polo could extend to the workers, especially those who were laid off from their jobs, the Philippine Ambassador and the Labor Attaché also distributed food parcels to those in attendance. During this meeting, immigration-related issues and concerns were also discussed by Jun Ranson, Chair of the New Zealand Association for Migration and Investment, and the Managing Director of the Woburn International, a reputable immigration consultancy firm. After answering the queries of the workers and providing them sound advice, she, along with the Philippine Ambassador and Labor Attaché, recognized how valuable the Filipino migrant workers are to the New Zealand economy due to their desirable working attributes and etiquette and world-class skills.
It is very important with regard to us being able to have stability with our workforce in New Zealand. So the migrant Filipino workers here, you've got really good reputations and there are opportunities out there. There really is. So just look and discuss things with your employer to find out what the scope of the responsibility is, has it changed, and so that you've got continued employment.
So even before the onset of COVID-19, Filipino workers have been playing a vital part in the New Zealand economy and infrastructure in all sectors. So all the more, as New Zealand and the world recovers from COVID-19, Filipino workers will have a vital role here in New Zealand. There have been many very big infrastructure projects that still need to continue, and for example, the Transmission Gully, we still have the rebuilding of Christchurch and other earlier earthquake-affected areas. Of course, the health and the caring infrastructure, our hospitals, clinics, care homes, other frontliner lines of activity, the shops, our teachers in the schools. So as New Zealand recovers, Filipino workers and Filipino Kiwis will be working side by side with their Kiwis and brothers and sisters on rebuilding and building back better this wonderful country.
New Zealand employers discovered Filipino workers to be most reliable in terms of their workmanship, their versatility, their ability to deal with adverse conditions, as well as their amiability when it comes to facing adverse conditions in their workplace. So the rest of that became history. There are 27,000+ work visa holders, Filipino workers in New Zealand today. Even as this country deals with the COVID-19 pandemic crisis, but most of these workers still continue to work. If there had been redundancies or job displacements that occurred for Filipino workers in this country, they are far less numerous than other nationalities who are equally migrant workers in New Zealand. And they owe this to the fact that Filipino workers are able to easily vary the conditions of their work visa. They are able to adapt to new work situations, and that's what makes them a prized employees of many employers in New Zealand.
Much as the workers were substantially provided with the information and advice they needed most, it was evidently clear that they wanted to stay and work in New Zealand to help rebuilding the economy as the government continues to fight against the resurgence of COVID-19 cases in the country.
Mula po sa Filipino community dito sa bansang New Zealand, kami po mga Pilipino ay nagpapasalamat ng buong puso sa gobyerno ng New Zealand, at kami po ay nakahandang tumulong na ang bansang New Zealand ay ma-rebuild namin ang kanilang ekonomiya. At higit sa lahat, at nagkaroon kami ng kapalaran na makapanguhay at magbigyan pagkakataon na madala namin ang aming pamilya.
Ako po ay isang karpentero na nagtatrabaho sa Transmission Galley, at kami nagpapasalamat sa gobyerno ng New Zealand, sa mga Kiwi na nag-allow sa amin na magtrabaho po dito sa New Zealand. At ninanais po naming makatulong sa ekonomiya ng New Zealand para makabangon sa pamamagitan ng pagtulong, at nangangako po kami na gagawin po namin ang lahat ng aming makakaya para makatulong sa pag-recover ng ekonomiya ng New Zealand dulot ng pandemyang COVID-19.
Para tulungan ng bansang New Zealand na makabangon guys sa dinanas na masasabi ito dahil yung pandemya. Gusto naming tulungan na makabangon galing sa pagkaroon ng New Zealand para makabawi naman sa tulong din na naibigay nila para sa amin.
Other than in the construction industry, Filipino migrant workers are also providing the needed manpower in vital industries of the New Zealand economy, such as the dairy farming, telecommunication, health, apiculture, horticulture, and hospitality. From Eagle News New Zealand Bureau, this is Greg Bessa. We live in interesting times.